Israel preparing to strike Iranian nuclear facilities amid tense wait for a revenge event and soaring World War III fears. Of course, Israel is preparing to strike Iranian nuclear plants if faced with a revenge attack for the perishing of a top Tehran commander last week. Of course, we just talked about this attack and the different things that are being said, including Iran saying that they believe the U.S. is responsible via the lack of condemnation that they are giving us. Iran basically coming out, foreign minister saying that the U.S. is responsible in part. It said, of course, now a Western security official has revealed that will respond to any attacks by striking Iran's nuclear targets directly. This is a massive deal. Of course, you probably heard about Iran and their nuclear programs, and striking those would be like, I would put it as, striking some of our bases. They hold it amongst some of the top things in their country. Nuclear anything and Iran have been basically hand in hand for a decade plus now. So the fact that they are talking about hitting a nuclear target, nuclear plant, or nuclear buildings, that is a very scary concept. Israeli forces have been conducting Air Force drills in preparation for the dangerous escalation, Alaf News reports. It says Iran is home to several nuclear sites, including power plants, uranium mines, and research reactors. A targeted attack against one of them could mark an unprecedented escalation in the melting pot of the Middle East conflict. Tehran's embassy in Syrian capital Damascus was destroyed in a suspected Israeli strike last Monday, killing several top brass commanders, two of which were extremely popular. And like I said in the past video, people were crying. You had military garb, these big burly generals crying, holding each other. It seemed like that these guys, at least by the appearance, they really loved one of these generals, or all of the generals. I don't know which ones they were crying for, but they were bawling. So this seems like this is not going to go away lightly. I don't think they're going to forget about it, considering they still have keychains and huge murals of Soleimani. I can only imagine what's going to happen with these gentlemen, and they're probably going to be all lumped in. Probably going to have 80-foot murals all over Iran of all of their faces. That's what I envision happening very soon here. So this is an escalation that we foresee is not going to be a shock or a surprise to anybody, but it is a very alarming one, to say the least. So we're going to talk about that and much, much more. We're going to talk about China and how FBI says that China is our biggest threat. All of that today on Marfoogle TV. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. I ran away. I was on the way, but they never saw me. I ran away. I was on the way, but they never saw me. I ran away. I was on the way, but they never saw me. All right, what is going on, guys? It's Adam A.K. Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. Today we have a lot to go over in a short amount of time, so we'll just get right into it. Let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So, first off, I want to say somebody sent me a clip of Clayton Morris over on Redacted making a comment. It was a Twitter video somebody clipped out of his show. I believe that's where I found out about this speech by the Iran foreign minister. It was very, very creepy. But it was him talking about how he's had dreams for the last week. And I thought that was very creepy. So I have, first of all, since like last Thursday, and I don't know if any of you guys have had the same thing, I have had a pit in my stomach, and I have felt just the most ominous feeling. And it wasn't about the solar eclipse. It wasn't about this. It wasn't about that. It was like a just general bad feeling. And I have had vivid dreams as well, just dream after dream. Every time I close my eyes, it's something. It's like another dimension. I'm not going to bore you with my dreams, but many of them, it's like I'm in a real world scenario, and almost all of them are surrounding different scenarios that kind of represent war, but without actually being a war. It's really, really weird. Every time I've looked up some of these vivid dreams, it really kicks back to conflict or a future ominous event. And it's really, really creepy. Have any of you had that experience lately? Have any of you just really had that butterfly feeling, but not in a good way? Not the good way like, oh, there's somebody you like butterfly feeling, or at the top of a roller coaster feeling, but like a low, just really ominous something is coming. That's how I felt. And I've always had, and I'm not like tooting my own horn or anything, but I have always felt like I've had really good intuition about these things. And other people have, of course, told me that because I've called things, not even on the show, just in real life with my family and my sister and other things. Like, I think something's wrong, or I think, we should check on this person, and they end up being in the hospital. I know that some of you are in the same boat as that. And I am just really feeling like everybody just kind of went back to normal, thinking that the end of the world was on the 8th. Like, no, this hasn't even begun yet. And I think before November is really when all of this stuff is really going to start kicking off, because that is when if there is the side theories, then that's when it would need to be kicked off. If there is side agendas, or if it is exactly how they say it is, then either way you look down that path, this is very scary. You've got FBI saying that we have our largest enemies, that we have the more threats than we did back in 2001. And of course, now the difference is over the last 4 years, millions of people have come in through the South, and at least tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people from every adversarial country that are the confirmed absolute bad guys of the bad guys, the actual agents, the actual military, the actual sleeper cells. They are now here. We know it for a fact. It is not a debate. There is, they put it together a rough number on Iran that 1 in every 100 people from that country in a recent study said that 1 in every 100 was a sleeper cell. Like, that's freaky. And I know that people don't believe everything that they say, and I wouldn't, but that's being kind of generous. 1 out of every 100. It's probably worse than that. That's probably just what they can confirm. And that's the factoid that doesn't scare the crap out of you. But it does scare the crap out of me, because when you look at a number of millions, 1 out of 100 is a lot. So yeah, has anybody else felt like that? Let me know in the chat below. Revin says next 2 weeks is going to be interesting. End of man's rules. Asshole never die. Julie C. Yes, Rubicon years ago. Definitely feels like something is coming, said Emerald Falcon. I love a good lucid dream, says Dingus. Well, some of you don't want, though. Very just freaky stuff. Dreams that I had to look up, like, what was happening, and they're like, oh, this is textbook, like, something ominous is coming. I'm like, oh, great. Anyways, let's get back into the news. Of course, the facilities, if they are literally planning on striking nuclear facilities, of course that's bad. Everybody knows that. It would be really, really bad. But Dex, do you want to go over Iran's naval commander threatens Netanyahu's country and talks up a regional conflict?
Yeah, certainly. He was doing an interview. This is the Rear Admiral Al-Razaya Tangzri. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but he's the commander of the Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. So the head of the Navy of the RG.
This is by the way, I want to quickly interrupt. This is one of the gentlemen who was weeping and bawling at the funeral. That is one of the gentlemen. I recognize him immediately. Go ahead.
So he was giving an interview, and in this interview, he was talking about specifically how it plans to have a confrontation with Netanyahu's country there on various fronts. Obviously, he's speaking from a naval position in his role, but he says that they want to become both a naval and a regional military power and be able to have a confrontation with them on various fronts. He also was suggesting that they are building a policy of creating a, quote, coalition of Muslim armies against them. So creating a coalition of other armies, which you could easily look at as what they've done with these T groups that they have funded. But it sounds like they want to go a little bit broader with that and start building alliances with some of the other countries there. And that very well might be easier to do now, given all of the events that have happened that have basically pitted, Israel even more so against some of the other Middle Eastern countries. So, this is the rhetoric coming from him. It was part of an interview that he was doing, but those are the most important pieces were the fact that he was talking about how they want to strike them from multiple angles and be seen as a much stronger military force. And by the way, they're a pretty large military force in the Middle East, as well as build a coalition now. And that goes hand in hand with all of the rhetoric we've been hearing as this continues to progress. And if this was to continue progressing and escalating, then we would easily see multiple countries potentially joining forces with Iran against is. And that's the question that we're sort of all waiting to see what the next steps are. But the one thing everybody's sitting on the edge of their seat for is waiting on this revenge or response attack. And the one thing I keep saying is you're not going to know what's going to happen. Like, it's not going to be the obvious day, and it's not even going to be an instantaneous thing. This is not Putin you're dealing with. This is, Iran. They have patience. They wait until you least expect it, and then they do it. When everybody thinks it's done and over with, then they show back up and say, here it is.
I mean, and look at this. I don't think you can pick a single guy out of this picture, and look, all these guys look like they just mean business. Culturally, though, in their culture and in society and what's accepted in society, it is a much tougher kind of place as far as what men are expected to do, what women are expected to do, what children are expected to do, the rules that they live by, the way that their culture works, the way that deals go, the way that punishment works. Everything is tough in these parts of the world, and it's like, look at the comparison, look at the contrast of say the youth over there compared to say the youth over here. People don't find that some of these smaller places as a threat, but these people, they are willing to give their life. When our youth won't even join the military right now, their youth will go over and take their own to take 10, even 2 people out with them. Like that's really, really something to think about. Like there is a connection here that is at the highest level. We're talking higher power. They believe their higher power is saying this needs to happen. I just shared the other day, there was a meeting in Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan, where a guy was talking up a speech, and they were chanting blank to America in Michigan, okay? And people were all joining in. Like, that's in America. And you have to think about, just the differences between our two countries, and now they're saying that they want revenge. People are still going to take this as a joke. I'm not. I would, especially if you're in Dearborn, Michigan, I would definitely have some sort of basic plan, because obviously it is definitely confirmed you have a large group there that chants stuff like that in public. That's insane. Now you can basically do whatever you want. in public, and yeah, you can do pretty much whatever, and that's the freedom that you are afforded here. But that same freedom lets us know what's going on publicly. Like we're all in the know about this. This is here. It's not in some far off land. It's down the street on 4th Street. And then the IRGC naval chief threatens to close key strait, vows response to the strike coming. So this is a very strategic area, and they are threatening to close it. And they're vowing this is going to be part of a response. The commander of Iran's IRGC Navy said on Tuesday that Israel's presence in the UAE was viewed as a threat by Tehran and warned that Tehran could close the Strait of Hormuz if deemed necessary. Now, this is something to very, very closely watch because it is involving the Strait of Hormuz. I believe, and I could be wrong, I think it is the Strait of Hormuz that was mentioned in that very old video of the gentleman said, I went in the White House and I saw a plan and a piece of paper that said, we're going to take 7 countries in 7 years and blah, blah, blah. And what would happen is we would have something in the Strait of Hormuz, a boat that looks like this and had this up, and then something would happen and boom, everything would start up. That is a Fantastic Freddy kind of event, is what they described years and years ago. And they said they'll go for this, this, and this, and this, and this country. All of those countries are now either regime changed, their leaders taken out, all these things. And now Iran is one of the last countries on that list. Almost every other country on that list has had major, major, major turmoil and major change. So this is something that it's like those rumors didn't go to bed. They never went to sleep. They've stuck around for this long. Usually when there's rumors for that long that just do not go away, that no one ever is able to prove them wrong, those are the rumors that usually end up being true. So I'm hoping that is not the case. But again, they're involving and talking about closing the Strait of Hormuz. It says, we do not get hit without striking back, but we are also not hasty in our retaliation. It says, we can close the Hormuz Strait, but are not doing so. However, if the enemy comes to disrupt us, we will review our policy. So, again, big changes in the future, near future, if they end up doing that. It would affect a very strategic point in the world. Now, before we move on, remember you can always go check out EMP Shield and protect yourself. A lot of folks do not have this kind of protection. It is not built into cars unless you get a Resnavir tank. I forget how you say it, but again, the $400,000 Humvee thing that has this all built in. Unless you have one of those and a spare $400,000, then you can easily get one of these and protect your vehicle. It would run after multiple EMP strikes or a Carrington-level event from the sun. It grounds the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, Humvee, freaking generators, ham radios, and even your home. You can, of course, easily put this into your vehicles in less than 10 minutes, red to red on your battery, black to black on your battery, and green to ground or a part of your frame. Then just bolt it to the side of an open space, and you're done. It's very, very simple. Marfooglenews.com/EMP, and make sure to use the code MARF. This same company has contracted with agencies like DHS, DOD, and, of course, the Dempsey team helping the Texas grid. So go check it out. Nobody's going to do it for you. Just like when Hurricane Katrina happened, it's not like the Gov is going to step in and go, hey, we have some preventative measures that we want you to do to save your life. In fact, they're not going to do anything until it's broken. They won't fix until it's broken, and they won't sign a check for something that would help in the future, unless it's for themselves. So if you want to protect yourself, that's the way to do it. As far as EMP, CME, and even lightning, you cover 3 bases with 1 device. All right, and it helps us out. It gets you $50 off per device, and you're helping independent media, which we are on an uphill battle, and we're going to be going up even a steeper hill in the next coming months. And Dex, do you want to talk about U.S. has no evidence apparently that has committed the Geno?
Yeah, and let me real quick before I jump to this. I just want to look something up while you were discussing that about EMP. We often have ships or carrier groups that go in and out potentially of the Persian Gulf. I know we did that a while back. We don't have anything there right now in the Strait of Hormuz. We have the Coast Guard cutters, a fleet of them, or a group of them that are outside. I think they're running out of Bahrain. So, to the point that if they cut that straight off, it's not like we've got equipment there. We haven't moved anything there, and if this is a new threat, we'll see how serious the U.S. takes that if they start to move a carrier group in that area or a different group into that area that could respond, besides just a few cutters that are sort of running around patrolling security in the area. So that will be an interesting tell to see how the U.S. may or may not respond to this threat. But as far as what Lloyd Austin had to say, he was being briefed at, I think it was the Senate, and matter of fact, there was a lot of disruptions there, which we'll talk about later because it carried further into the rest of the Senate. But he was talking about what was happening and was asked specifically if there was any evidence of the Geno and the other part of that aside going on that's being is being accused of, and if it's being committed there. And he said, we do not, this is his quote, do not have any evidence of that. So he is firmly saying that the U.S. sees no evidence that type of thing is happening in the Strip and in the actions that is taking in that area. So that will be inflammatory towards those that disagree with that opinion. There will be, and as we know, there are many that protest that, and there are many people that disagree with that opinion, and they will, and did, even during his testimony. But that will, again, just fuel this. Now, I'm not to say that he's right or he's wrong in saying that. Either way, just the point that he's saying it is going to cause that problem, or it's going to fuel that flame, so to speak. So there is no right answer.
He was interrupted.
There's only he was numerous times by the protesters. But there's no right answer or wrong answer to give. There's only the truth, and whether or not he's giving it, I don't know. I have no insight as to what intel they may or may not have, or what position they're trying to take, or what they're saying. It's just what he said. We have to look at it for what it means, to the environment that is underway and affects all of us in our day-to-day lives around cities, around populated areas where people are getting inflamed or enraged around these topics, and that's what's scary about this.
Yeah, so whether you agree with him or not, they are formally saying something. Well, they're taking other actions. They do one action, then they say something different. Then they do an action, then they say something different. They do one action, they do the complete opposite as far as what they say. It's almost like there's a train just headed to crash, and they're like, "Oh, should we hit the brakes? Should we not? Should we hit it? Should we not? Just let it roll." But the end of the track is about 100 yards down the road. Just keep it going. Seems like it's about to derail. And anti-IS agitators shut down Senate cafeteria. Around 50 were arrested. Quite simply put, all over the world, there's actually been protests, some extremely large. This was actually shut down, and I'm actually surprised that there were as many people arrested, because they have been quite lenient on this angle as far as most places in the United States. But this was around the Senate cafeteria. More than 50 people were arrested Tuesday after the Senate cafeteria was shut down by anti-IS protesters chanting, "Senate can't eat until the Strip eats." Speaking about the Gaza. It says the U.S. Capitol Police confirmed to Fox News that those arrested in the Dirksen Senate office building in Washington, D.C. Were charged with crowding, obstructing, and incommoding. Dex, I've never heard of incommoding. Did you look that up? incommoding. I'm assuming
I think it
Khmer
means
is
it's inconvenience someone. They're incommoding by the traffic. It's an inconvenience. I didn't know that was a law, but
man, there's a law that you can't inconvenience people. Then I think all of our politicians have to go to prison. Yeah, is there a felony one, like felony incommoding? Sounds like either that or like isn't it commode is a bathroom? Like I'm in the commode. Wonder if there's any Latin ties there. And then it is illegal to demonstrate inside of any of the congressional buildings. Capitol Police said in a statement. Huh.
I wonder how long it's gonna take to process them.
But wait a second, wasn't there another event where they walked in the same buildings that they did prior to this big event where a lot of people got arrested, and like almost nobody got arrested? So, I don't know. Maybe this one's a little bit different. I'm not familiar with the area. I've never been to D.C. So if you are from D.C., tell me what you think of this compared to prior protests about doesn't matter what subject they're protesting about. And do you think that this was actually being nice, or was it being too harsh? And then Iran's foreign minister accuses U.S. of giving Israel the green light to hit the consulate that got hit the other day. So we just talked about this over on Marfoogle News. Again, that video is up right now. It was live right before this one. And essentially in the speech, and through a lack of condemnation, that's why they're saying that we are responsible. But in the speech, it was very eerily said, the U.S. is responsible and we're going to hold them as responsible for this. And this is, of course, around the same week that they're saying that there will be a revenge event coming. Like, revenge is coming. Another gentleman said, we're patient. And, of course, we've been talking about the last week. These groups, one thing that the world needs to recognize is that a lot of these events, the one thing that they are not is impatient. They will wait for the right time. They plans things for years. And if there is involvement of any three-letter agency kind of thing, then they plan even longer. You're talking about a bureaucracy planning secretly some horrible things. I can only imagine how if you were at a top clearance level, the kind of stupid meetings where they probably actually have pizza brought into the room for them to plan some horrible, horrible thing. They probably even have, burritos brought in to decide what horrible things they do. But yeah, I can only imagine whether this is something, totally legit. What is the response going to be? Many of us are waiting. I think that they're going to be patient when this does happen. It's going to be much bigger than people thought. It's going to make 2001 look like chicken feed. And I am believing a former comment. I think that the former president was right. And that is what they are planning. Going off of what Rick Jones said, the sheriff that came out after went to the meeting with 3,300 sheriffs, he essentially said that they are not talking about a regional event or an event in D.C. or an event in Seattle or in Florida or in California. They're talking about nationwide events going off simultaneously all over the country. And it's going to be something that is going to put everybody on their hind legs, that it will happen so quick that there's not going to be any kind of preparation for it. Even if you do have plans in place, it is so widespread that they will not be able to handle it. If this is coupled with any of the major state actors doing some sort of cyber infrastructure attack, that would be one of the worst things that could happen. And that's why preppers who prep, again, would actually do really well through any kind of event like this. This is why we talk about it, not to be scared of it. We've talked about this for 5 or 6 years now. Now that it is physically coming closer, many of you are already prepped. And if you're new to this stuff, it might be kind of daunting and it's stressful. Just take it one step at a time, no matter how much it feels like it's going to happen tomorrow. You should always be working just one day at a time and just slowly build up your arsenal, grow as a prepper, and again, try to look at one scenario at a time and try to say, hey, how can I make this easier if this happens? Because what is going on right now, they're directly saying if we're responsible, even partially, I don't think that they're saying it lightly. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. All right, let's do a quick roll call. Thank you, Gen X Josh, by the way. Thank you so much for your support. Let me read that. Sounds like an interesting comment here. Anyone else hear about Vlad's country possibly linked Bitcoin transfers from the T people, the bad guys, to Burisma in UKR? I have not heard about that yet. I feel like I saw a tweet on that yesterday, but I'm not sure if I'm talking about the right thing. So I will have to look into that, Gen X Josh, and thank you for your supporting Independent. Sweat and Ministry, thank you, says the last 2 weeks we have had the same feeling. I hate to say it, unfortunately things will only get worse. I sent Dex an email that is important showing signs of the times of an article about Revelation 13. Dex, I don't know if we can try to grab that. It's from Sweat and Ministries, but maybe we can add it to the show if it's something interesting, or add it to the website. And then Jesus is Coming. The article is about a 2030 thing. The eclipse was a final warning, which was put on my heart to share all I have this week with y'all. Well, thank you, Sweat and Ministries. And I actually on the solar eclipse video, I said, "Is this the beginning of the end?" Right? It's not the end. It's the beginning of the end. I hope that's not the case, though. Thank you over on DLive, Cloud Pharrell, Kimbria, Big Fizz, Broken Heart Survivor, DFW Jackie, Comet Moon, and many more. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll add his link to the website.
Okay,
got it.
So Sweat and Ministry, if you go to tonight's show over on marfooglenews.com, you will actually find at the very bottom of the show notes where we have every single article, tweet, video, picture, document. You will also have the video there, or the article there that Sweat and Ministries just sent us. So that will be there by the end of the show. And let's see here. Back over to the chat here. Thank you, King Inslee's West Coast Kingdom, Uncle Iro. We've got Gen X Josh became a member. Thank you. Hey, thank you. And that's awesome. The longer you join, a lot of people don't know this, you get a different badge. And most people really don't know this. All those little M2s and M6, you could not believe how much work I put into those stupid little icons. You had to do them with a bit app, so I had to hand dot. It was a 32-bit app, and I made each one of them probably hundreds of times over. It was insane. So those were actually handmade. But I can't wait until somebody hits like 2 years, because then they start getting really cool. Rubicon 60, San Diego. Mysteries Mystery School. Love the icons. That's awesome. It was so much stupid time on that 32-bit, and we had to find a certain app so I could do it. It was so stupid. 32-bit is where, like, it's, if you've ever played like Animal Crossing, it's like the dots, and it was just nuts. And then Kevin Kennedy, TMI. I think I just did TMI right there. Mike from Michigan says, friggin' love this and the family. Well, Michael Kozla, thank you. You Zuber, Zion Prince, Muhammad Salman, 666 and prime numbers. I didn't know that. Neom Prince Muhammad. Comet Moon, Paulette Owens, Viv B, Stupid Time. It was stupid time for sure. Oliver Queen, FJB. I think I didn't realize that if you say FJB or F in, it's the first three letters are FBI. And then that into numbers is 428, and 824 is backwards for NFL, and LFN is love for national things, and things is a word that goes right next to some, and some things are obviously very vague. Right? Oki Khan, Bobby Sue says, say what, Marv? Don't worry about it. Just let that one pass right through. It was purposely meant to mean nothing. Uncle Iro, Louis Tramposh, Vice President Marf. I remember when people said 2020 Marf. That's how long we've been on. I would never, ever want to be a president, especially now with the country as divided as it is. Oh, man. I have enough fun dealing with half and half audience. Half hate you, half love you. It's not fun. Billy the Kid Norwood, 1,000 points of flight. What is going on? No expectations. Uncle Iro. Marf, you're a goober. We love you. I was kidding. I sometimes I do think that the whole connections thing, like, I think there are a lot of creepy connections, but I have seen some people that make the craziest connections. Most of my friends are pretty good at making the legit ones, but I've met a couple people that have made connections that were just like crazy. That I'm like, whoa, that's over my head. All right, and let's see here. Back to the map. We've got DCI, FBI director says China is the defining threat of our generation. It's so crazy because this same guy, Christopher Wray, has come out so many times, and he is the one who is just straight up pushing that we are going to have some sort of event happen. He is saying China is the defining threat of our generation. He's saying that this is worse than 2001. He's saying that all of this stuff is going to happen. These are the same agencies that directly work with a lot of these crazy entities around the world. Same with CIA and all of these things. Half the time, 30, 40 years later, you find out that they were somehow involved in some of these things, right? Not saying that they are on any of this crazy stuff that's going on now, but I'm sure most people are thinking it. But the director reiterated his warnings about China and the country's cyber and physical threats towards the U.S. on Tuesday. So, Dex, as far as cyber threats, we have made it pretty clear. We believe that this is one of the biggest threats out there. And, of course, it's one of the easier things to do to our country without getting a direct nuke strike back. Like, they can't cyber attack our entire infrastructure and then we just start nuking people. That's not how it works. You respond in kind. So if we are hit, it would totally screw up our way of life. And we've seen it when even some things get knocked out, like the pharmacies getting knocked out, caused havoc for a week. Just one service provider, AT&T and technically Verizon, both went down for like 8 hours. It caused absolute chaos. Nobody could use their phones. It was absolutely shut off. The whole thing was actually down. These kind of things, which, again, they said it was like an update or some stupid thing. Come on. So with this, Dex, do you think that, you think he's talking straight here? Talk straight. Also a provider.
Yeah. Look, on many ways, there's many ways you can look at this, and I think it's pretty clear. You could even say we're in an actual new version of warfare with China, whether it be cyber, whether it be technology, espionage, some of the things that are happening culturally around the world, some of the socio things that are happening. And then more specifically, the other one is the stuff they're bringing across and pumping up into our country that's killing people every day on the streets. That, 70,000 people a year, maybe higher, depending on which numbers you look at. That's more people that were lost in some major wars we've fought. So it's probably time to sort of redefine, and I'm not trying to sit here and say Ray is awesome or anything like that, but it's pretty clear. I mean, he's sort of stating the obvious that he's saying that they're the defining threat of our generation. What he really ought to say is we're pretty much already in a conflict with them. It's just that we're not using conventional military kinetic weapons at the moment. So, going to his specific quotes, he said, front and center is China, the defining threat of our generation. To put it simply, the CCP is throwing its whole government at undermining the security and economy of the rule of law world. He said China's hacking problem is larger than that of every other major nation combined, meaning they are bigger than the whole rest of the world put together. He said, if each one of the FBI's cyber agents and intelligent analysis focused exclusively on the China threat, China hackers would still outnumber the FBI cyber personnel by at least 50 to 1. So that means there's 50 cyber hackers for China for every one employee in the FBI. That's huge. That's a lot of people. And he said it's not just cyber, but it's traditional espionage, economic espionage, foreign malign influence, the selection process that happens in November influence, transnational repression, and other things. He said they recruit human sources to target our businesses, using insiders to steal the same kinds of innovation and data that their hackers are also targeting. So they're doing a lot to get information from our country to use for themselves. They're engaging in corporate deception, hiding behind Beijing's hand in transaction, joint ventures, and investments, all with the same goal. So that's all his quotes there for the most part. I think I maybe interjected one thing, but in general, it's everything he said. So he went on, he was talking, this was at the American Bar Association. He was giving this speech, and he's been talking a lot about China recently. Part of it, I think, is to get the public in a mindset that we're going to be going into conflict with China. But I think really they ought to just admit that we are. Like I say, I mean, look at what they're doing to us in many different ways. I mean, both them and our other adversaries, we're in a war. We just don't admit it on paper.
Yeah, and them accessing our infrastructure, they've been hiding in it for 5 years. If you look back to the Red Scare, right? The Red Scare is a form of moral. Oh, actually, this is a better one. Was hysteria over the perceived threat posed by communists in the U.S. during the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States, which intensified in the 1940s. During then, any kind of accusation that you might be a communist or something like that was put out. If you think about right now, there is more. There's more. China has more fingers into more things here in the United States than any other country. They have more sway over movies, media, social media, over the internet, over actual equipment. And somebody said earlier, and I'm sorry, I missed who said that, but said that China is in the position it is because of America's greed. It's really the world's greed. All of the American companies, all of the European companies, all of the Western nations that had these companies, these big corporations that were bigger than life, they all said, well, hey, we could hire somebody in America for $15 an hour, or we could hire somebody in China for $2 an hour. We could make the same quality product, but we could do it in China and pay $2 shipping, and we'll still be up $8 or $9 if we do it this way. And they decided to take all the jobs. I mean, if you look at the car manufacturing, if you look at logging, if you look at all these different things where, I'm talking about the equipment of logging, they outsourced the companies that built the actual machinery, that built all the stuff. They outsourced it with, aviation companies and other things that ended up some of the other companies, the competitors that would have popped up with Boeing. All of these things were ended up porting over to there. If you think about any item in your home, there's most likely parts and things that are from China. Even if it says, a lot of things will say made in America, but it actually means it's put together in America. Inside are components from China. And it is because it was so much cheaper. We gave them all of the abilities to make high-end advanced technology over in China. People still think everything is going to fall apart in China. Heck, some of the most advanced components are made in China, and some of the most advanced companies that you expect, or you probably, if somebody says, hey, where do you think this is made? They say, oh, it's made in Sweden, or it's made in this, when it's actually made in China. You'll say, oh, well, this is super, extremely high tech. This has got to be made where the company is in, Ireland or this or there. No, they're all made in China. we gave them the keys to the world. And now that they're starting to turn the lock, everybody's going, oh my gosh, it's been a long time coming. People think that they're about to go bankrupt. If they do, they are now doing it. They're going bankrupt because they're building the largest military, they're building the largest Navy, they're building the largest Air Force, and they're directly hacking into all of our infrastructure. They're taking all of our IP, they're taking all of our designs, and they're now able to produce them and make them and manufacture them with no detail, with no detail missed, and with no quality loss. You know why? Because our corporations were greedy and sent over the tech and the blueprints to things to where even if they didn't have the blueprints for, say, one of our high-tech secret jets, well, if they hack the right server, they do. And they also have the ability to build it, and they even have the ability to do it in secret. Some of their manufacturing process, which we found out about, is they even have in the jungle. From satellite, you will see a jungle with trees and all sorts of stuff. But in reality, there is a high-tech manufacturing plant underneath hills of grass that look like it's in the middle of the jungle, but it's actually producing jets and planes and boats and all sorts of other stuff. This is what they're doing right now. Now, I called this before mainstream. I said that they are secretly making Navy. And this was from information from the Fugel fam that the military was sent on. 2 Fugel family members were sent on different missions to try to go scout this stuff out, and only could talk about it after it was released in a small report that nobody covered. And then a year later, they go, oh, by the way, China has the largest Navy in the world now. Even if it was by numbers, it was like, whoa, how did they do this? They were building in secret. They're building, they're hoarding corn, they're hoarding wheat, they're hoarding natural gas, they're hoarding everything. They're hoarding gold. They just purchased more gold than they ever have before. Right now, we are in this huge battle, and people are pretending it's not happening. It's people are in denial that this is happening. But imagine that Red Scare. Imagine if they did that now. They would easily be able to go, oh, this has ties to that, this has ties to that, this has ties to that. But why isn't this happening? Instead, many are saying, go invest in China, instead of saying, hey, we need to cut these people out. At the same time, they're saying, hey, we're going to ban this from that, that from that. Now we're not going to have drones. You know, they're Chinese drones. We don't want these cell phone companies. We don't want this. We don't want that. But it seems they say one thing, they'll take an action, and then they'll say the other or take another action. It's like they say they don't want us intermingling with China, and we're going to not let our law enforcement have DJI drones. But then at the same time, they're helping, and there's money going back to China through businesses that are directly tied with our government. It's crazy. I don't know what the heck is going on, but I believe China is one of the biggest threats, and I agree with him on this. And I don't think that's I don't think that's fake. I think that's the biggest thing right now. But that's just my opinion. What's yours? Let me know in the comments down below. I also think that they understand if they say something, if they have certain people say it, then people go, oh, then it's fake news. Then they'll think the opposite of what they say. They know that the trust level in the gov and in the military and in the mainstream media is so low that if they want you to believe something psychologically, they can literally use reverse psychology. They can say, oh, this is true. And then you'll go, oh, it's fake. People will literally go, oh, they just put it in the news, so it's got to be fake. That's how people think now. So think about it. Do you think they really just missed the memo? They don't. They still believe we believe everything they say? Absolutely not. They absolutely 100% know that if they want something to be believed, they could say it's not, that it is true, and we will think it is fake. It's that easy now. It's 4D chess, and it's being played every day. I also thought about how they are saying China is the biggest threat, right? After saying Iran's the biggest threat and this, that. It reminds me of Leave the World Behind. How in Leave the World Behind, they got Iranian pamphlets. And then the guy said, well, in California, they got North Korean pamphlets. Oh, and then they had Chinese pamphlets in this state. And it was meant to confuse people. So when something does go down, our power goes out, are we going to know if it's China, Iran, Russia, whatever? I bet it's going to be said all over the place, and people are going to be infighting on who it is. Because, nobody really, we said, what do you think the next event will be? Our own chat, which follows this stuff very closely. Almost no one listed a civil conflict as the thing that's going to happen next. With the division where it is, that very well could be the very next thing to happen. We don't even need to go to conflict with another country. There are people pissed off at each other enough here in the country that they may get to the point where both sides just snap. So, yeah, hopefully that does not happen. And then the U.S. Indo-Pacific Commander, very concerned about Chinese aggression in the South China Sea. It's just every day. Every day we cover something new, a new official talking about the South China Sea, why this is important. It is going to be the battlegrounds of World War III. The South China Sea will be a battlegrounds. There will be sunken ships at the bottom of the South China Sea. That is my opinion. I believe at some point in the near future, there will be American ships sunk right in the middle of the South China Sea. I believe there will be ships right outside our country sank. There will probably, in 60 years from now, whoever wins, they will have tours of ships sunk right off of California. That's what I feel is going to happen. And maybe they will have ships sunk right outside of China too, and China will have tours of it. But the South China Sea, I believe, is going to be one of the big spots that the war is going to take place. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Commander basically stating they are very, very concerned about all of the events going on with the Philippines, with the escalations happening, with the Coast Guard, all of these really important things that most people are like, who cares? It's just a boat that's marooned on the Thomas Shoal. If you see the land and the sea that China is claiming versus all of the other countries involved, all of the other Asian countries, they all have actual claim to a lot of these areas. Now, Australia is getting heavily involved with all of this stuff, but if you look at this area, and Australia is right below all of this, remind you. So here's Australia. You go up this way, you get to the Philippines, you get to Taiwan, you get to Vietnam, you get to all of these areas. Now, this sea right here, Philippines sea goes out to here. At least the invisible map, this part of the sea should be the Philippines. All of this, it's a huge area that Vietnam should actually have control over, complete control over. China is claiming all of it. They're saying all the way down to here, because all these Spratly Islands, the Paracel Islands, the South China Sea, the smaller islands here, all of these are being built up into bases. That way they could say, oh no, we have land here. So within a certain amount of miles outside of these islands, those are ours. And unfortunately, Philippines and all of those, they didn't have that. So that's why the Philippines had this beached boat and started having people live there so they would be able to say, no, we have people living here too. But they're not dredging the bottom of the sea. They're not putting billions of dollars into airfields and bases and barracks and whole cities, restaurants on these islands. These are forward operating bases. If you look at the Paracel Islands and the Spratly Islands, these are bases. They are straight up forward operating bases. So, yeah, I'm concerned about this as well. And I think it's one of the bigger things, and I'm sure most people are not because the MSM is saying it is. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And then before we move on, if you want a recommendation, you may not want one, but we're going to give one anyways. The best solar generator on the market, in our opinion, is Energy, and that is because it is modular, it is expandable, and it is not made by a company that is a front for something connected to a very bad country we just talked about. This is Energy. They actually are now winning, and they won the STTR Phase 2 contract. These same Flex Tactical units will be sent out with the U.S. Army. So the reason why the Army picks something is not because it's frilly or pretty, it's because of its reliability. These things turn on and turn on every time. They're built well. They're built like tanks. I cannot exaggerate that, under-exaggerate that enough. They are literally built like tanks. And again, they are expandable. So you can not only mod them and put different bricks, just like a Lego, you can pop in a brick that allows it to have UPS, uninterrupted power supply. You can allow it to have triple the panels plugged in. You can have it have rapid charging, so it can charge a battery in as little as 40 minutes from the wall. But also tons of other features to come. As they build new future editions, you'll be able to just plug it in like a Lego brick. So it's a very cool unit. It is, again, built like they used to build appliances back in the 60s. This thing is built to last for decades, if not tens of decades. It is absolute brick of a beast of a generator. On top of that, it's silent, so nobody's going to know you have one. You can't hear it from a block away, let alone 5 feet away, so nobody is going to know you have one. You can be very stealthy with this, and you can be very portable. You can either have a whole wall of batteries, or you can bring one battery with the head unit and bring it to work and power all of your stuff, power your drills, power your different tools, and then take it with you in your work truck. So these are awesome for regular work too. You can charge them from the wall just like a big battery bank if you don't have solar panels yet. But I highly recommend getting yourself some folding panels because they're extremely portable. You can take them anywhere with you. And very easy to move around. Marfugglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. The only downside is there is a wait. You could wait up to 6 to 7 months for your unit, so you would want to get it as soon as possible. Once you get the actual head unit, as far as the world is fighting over lithium, it should get better and better over time as far as the wait times for actual batteries. So make sure to go check it out, marfugglenews.com/energy. And then North Korea, top Chinese official to lead a goodwill visit. Dex, do you want to talk about China going to North Korea?
Wow. Yeah, so this hadn't happened in a while, but a top leader from China is going to lead a delegation to North Korea this week. So both of the countries actually announced it Tuesday. Zhao or Leiji, I'm sure I'm butchering that, but the chairman of the National People's Congress and considered the number 3 official in the ruling CCP, will visit North Korea from Thursday till Saturday. So this is hot off the heels of all of the visits back and forth between Putin and Kim. Now he's getting the love and attention of China. So get ready, get prepared. So they don't have any details on what's going to be described. They're just describing it as a goodwill visit. They don't have any details of what they're exactly expecting to talk about. I think that's all going to be considered top secret, especially Kim doesn't really put much out other than, fluff to make himself look good. But I would expect we're going to, see potential advancements in technology for North Korea. And we're probably going to see positioning and maybe even orders for what they're supposed to do as the rollout of the greater conflict will prevail. And that's just my rhetoric. That's my opinion on it. I've said it over and over again that I think NK will be a tool for China to distract the U.S. in the north. At the same time, what they're doing with the Philippines in the south will also be a distraction so that they can more easily swoop in with their millions and millions of people in their military to take Taiwan. And
imagine this. It's not easy to just immediately remove troops from an area. If North Korea goes to surprise war with, it won't be a surprise, but it will be a sudden war with North Korea and South Korea. We back up South Korea. You end up having troops put in place. You have Navy put in place. Then say something else goes on. You have Venezuela takes Guyana, and we're like, okay, well, we can help them out too. We send out some troops to Venezuela and Guyana. Then all of a sudden you have stuff pop off in the Middle East. You have troops over there. You have all of this going on. They're in place. They're in place troops. China and Taiwan hits. All of this goes down at the same time. And not to mention Russia and Ukraine. say Ukraine gets added into NATO, you've got a conflict over there, you've got our military spread around the world, then China decides to take Taiwan. We are backing up several other countries. Our troops are already in play. They can't just overnight, they can, but it would take, I mean, think about how hard it was for them to get troops out of Afghanistan. Think about how fast they would be to get troops out of North Korea, Guyana, all of these other places that they may help. Maybe even including somewhere in the South China Sea, something else. China takes Taiwan. Once we're spread thin, that is the only simulation where Russia simulations, Pentagon simulations, and China simulations show the U.S. possibly losing. If China fights the USA, right now they say USA kicks China's butt. USA fights Russia, we kick Russia's butt. I mean, unless it goes to mutually assured destruction, but war to war, we're winning. Every country has done millions of scenarios. They've even put it through algorithms. Consistently, the only time that the U.S. loses is when we are split up into multiple areas. And what is building right now? What is being created? All of these countries are somehow going to conflict with this conflict and this, and this, and that. You've got all these proxy kind of things going on. And you have all of these countries that we just happen to be backing up, all about to either be at war or they're talking about war right now. So it's like they're building the framework. We are spread thin. Our national guards are being deployed and can't protect their own states. Oh, yeah, well, not to mention, think about if our National Guard is even busy. Say something happens and Dex, remember we covered, they are building a bridge. We just covered this the other day. So check this map out. So let's go over to America real quick. Dex, you probably know where I'm going with this, huh? So over in America, right? Down below, let's see. Gosh. Okay, so over here, right? So here's the United States. Let's zoom in. So here's the United States. Here's our border. We already have the whole south border, just millions coming in. There is a path that a lot of these folks are taking, and it goes all the way down through here. It's crazy. What is this area called? That pass? Darien something?
It's the Darien Gap, as they call it.
Yes. So the Darien Gap, there is a trail here that is a very strategic area. And all of a sudden, there's this massive bridge, a column big enough for tanks. They say a column of tanks to come over, and they are actually building it right now. And nobody knows who's funding it. So imagine the scenario I just said. We're all spread thin. You've got Guyana, you've got troops here, you've got troops there. Japan may get attacked by somebody. North Korea spreads their troops out. You've got Japan going to conflict, and we are about to announce tomorrow. I believe tomorrow they're announcing all of these different connections. Then you have troops come up from the south border. So our National Guard is busy at the south border trying to defend our actual border, and not against just people from other countries. We're talking about an actual military force. You've got our Coast Guard trying to keep people out, and then they turn the lights off. Then you got a civil conflict. We are left with just our police. Our police, our sheriffs, all of these people that we've treated super good for the last 5 years. And a lot of people say that was almost pushed artificially through social media and all of these events that have happened since CV, which also people believe there was a lot of shady stuff around that, and that was also originating in a certain place of the world. All of this happens, and then guess who would be the last force left to protect everything and keep it going? The police. And man, I'm telling you, whether you support them or not, if they were the only people that were keeping our system together, it would be, and all the power's out, everything's off. Think about that. Think about all of the times that they've been verbally and physically spit on over the last 5 years, whether they deserved it or not, I don't think it will be a pretty picture. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening with this, but I see a bigger thing. Do you guys see it? It's very creepy. And then Russia, China to talk about deeper security cooperation in Eurasia. Dex, do you want to go over what Lavrov just said?
So here we go with, creating a larger partnership, at least as they call it, or cooperation. But Russia and China have agreed to discuss ways to deepen the security cooperation across Europe and Asia to counter attempts by the U.S. to impose its will on the region. So I think of this very much like what is the counter to NATO and what is the counter to what they call the Pacific NATO that hasn't actually formed yet, but everybody thinks is coming, because we're probably going to hear something from this big meeting with the Prime Minister of Japan and our administration, our leader. I think it's happening tomorrow. So we'll get more on that. I guess I'm sure there'll be a lot of pomp and circumstance from that, telling us what actually came from it, because they said it's going to be big. It's going to be really big. So, of course, they've a long time had their no limits partnership between the two of them from back in 2022 and before. They reiterated that, but they're now saying that they are having further talks. Lavrov said after talks with the Chinese counterpart, Wang Yi, said that Putin had suggested strengthening the Eurasian security, and the China and Russia had agreed to start a dialogue on involvement of our other like-minded people on this issue. So there's other allies they're probably going to be pulling into this. You can pretty much guess who they are. You can probably start with some of the BRICS components, but you can also look at the others that wanted to join BRICS or in the process of that. India being the one outlier that kind of likes to play on both sides of the fence, so to speak. So this is just, again, at the moment, more rhetoric against NATO, but it's certainly a sign that says, hey, China is willing to engage further, specifically because they're seeing this greater threat. And I'm sure they're looking at what's happening in the Philippines. They're looking at what's happening with South Korea, and they're especially looking at what's going to be announced with Japan. Just as much as, say, Putin was looking at the NATO expansion that kept encroaching and encroaching and encroaching towards his border, and that was an issue. So the lines are getting deeper and drawn, and they're circling the wagons, so to speak.
And by the way, Kathy, I totally understand that somebody else said it looks like your punctuation is off and it added the previous sentence. So don't worry, I did see that. I'm like, wait, Kathy, what? Why? And somebody pointed that out. I thought that was pretty funny. Someone said a minute ago that they were almost tired of waiting. I actually understand that feeling. I think that a lot of preppers, we prep for these events, and it almost feels like you're like, okay, bring it on. I don't think we should have that opinion. Once it happens, we're really going to be tested. And I think it's really going to be something that even if you are the biggest prepper in the world, you have everything set up, this is not going to be something you want to happen. I think that some of us have this kind of thing in the back of our head, like it's like a car crash. You don't want to see a car crash, but you can't look away. Like you're waiting for this thing to happen because it's almost a curiosity that you can't fulfill. Like what does this look like if everything goes down? We've envisioned it for years. We might have seen it, or we've dreamed about it, and we see it, and we're like, when is this going to happen? It's like also friends and family, you're telling them that this is coming, and there's no vindication, and it feels like, oh, they just think I'm crazy. But soon enough, when it does happen, that vindication is not going to be needed. And guess what? They might think about you, but they're probably not going to be able to tell you, oh, I should have listened to you. I should have got stuff. I should have got prepped. But again, like, we're not going to get vindication because if the internet goes down, you're not going to be able to say, oh, this whole time they were totally right. It's not going to happen. It's going to be very scary. So I would hope that people don't hope this thing is going to go down. I hope I hope that we're proved wrong and that people in 5 years from now can say, oh, you said that there would be war. I hope that people are able to point it out and make fun of me because I believe this was going to happen. I hope that's the case rather than the prior. And Deborah, hey, nice to see you. Aberration, love to garden. Sheldon Boss should have got an EMP shield. I actually do believe people really should focus on cyber events. I think that is the most common sense way that they would get us. I don't think they're going to strike us in an attack that we immediately get to strike back at every country. Any country that hits us with a big boom, we get to do a big boom there. If they hit us with a cyber attack, we first have to figure out where it came from. And then if that country has been prepping where we have not because of our stupid bureaucratic red tape, that's really scary. What if our grid gets shut down? Meanwhile, other countries have been prepping and doing EMP shield type stuff to their grids. If we respond in kind, they still do business as usual. Also, people were talking about ATMs. ATMs will not work without power. Somebody said, I know because I used to put them in. An ATM is just like an arcade machine. It has a single plug. It plugs in. If it doesn't plug into power, it's not going to work. Somebody says, yeah, all you need if that happens is a chain and a truck. It's not. Even if that does happen, then to use that cash, where are you going to use that cash? There's not going to be grocery stores. You're not going to have a place to go spend that cash except for with people. Just like Leave the World Behind, you could have $1,000 and say, hey, I need some antibiotics. Somebody could be like, yeah, well, so does my entire family, and we don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months. So they could say, but we do need, my nephew's got a broken arm, and we need a doctor. You need to find us a doctor, and we'll give you the antibiotics. And if you fix his arm, we'll fix this. More valuable than anything else is things that will keep people alive. That's why a lot of preppers will tell you right now that the actual physical items are what's going to really come in handy. In Venezuela, when they had hyperinflation, people were able to survive through it that actually stored and stocked up. So you can see some examples of how the people that actually kept physical items rather than cash, because cash was worthless. That was actually a great thing to have around. But if you don't have cash, I would have some cash out. We've told you many times over the years, don't depend on ATMs. Your credit card's not going to work. If you use 99.9%, if you use your card or tap to pay or something like that, you should already know that's not going to work. There's not going to be ATMs. The banks closed when we had CV. You had to get an appointment to go into the damn place. You had to sit there in line. That was with that event. Think about a massive war where all of our power goes out. The banks aren't going to be there. It's not going to be an essential. They're going to say essential is just surviving. So keep these things in mind. This is all brewing. I don't think we're crazy for thinking war is about to go down. I think the people that don't think war is about to happen I think they're a little crazy. I think they have a wish, right? That it's like they're driving 80 on the wrong side of the road. That's what I think. But again, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. I think hypercritical people they're just scared to admit that they're scared about this. Secretary General welcomes NATO's partnership with Bosnia and Herzegovina, calls for unity and continued reforms. Dex, do you want to go over this? And I've never heard of Herzegovina.
Well, it's Bosnia. Bosnia and Herzegovina is two different areas, but the same. It's one president. But I guess the one thing we got to look at here is the potential expansion. They're talking about partnerships. That the continuous discussion of strengthening NATO in more ways than it can is obviously key to them. They want to have as many partners in it as possible. They just won't take UKR in until the conflict is over. At least that's what they say. But this is one of those areas that I guess we sort of look at just like we looked at, say, Georgia and some of the other countries that they have gone into. Remember the meeting where the former president had gone into Belgium, and then the next day Jens Stoltenberg shows up in Georgia, and they were the Georgia. Now I say Georgia, I'm talking about the country of Georgia, not the state. In that country, at the same time, the Northern Territory was saying they wanted to, secede or whatever, become part of Russia. So it's interesting that we just continue to see this expansion of NATO, or attempting to expand NATO into other countries as quickly as possible, just like you're seeing, Russia and China trying to build more alliances with any of the countries that would like to not be part of NATO and want to be on their side. And ultimately, we're going to see, potentially, with the exception of maybe India and maybe Switzerland, you're going to see basically two sides in the world. There's going to be one side that's, we already see it today, but it's going to be even stronger, where everybody's pretty much aligned. And we'll start, the next thing you're going to see is they're going to start dividing up African countries, which they already have. And at that point, we'll have the entire world sort of in two different camps. You're on, the Western side, or you're on the opposite side.
I didn't know if you cut out there for a second there.
No. I was just wrapping up my thoughts. It's not an easy subject. It's kind of complex, and I know a lot of people don't understand or even care about where is Bosnia and what does it matter, but they did join, the Partnership for the Peace program back in 2006. They've had ongoing cooperation with NATO in 2007, and they continue to be a partner, but I guess we'll see if they actually become an official member at some point.
Well, I guess we'll end up seeing and following along. And then the U.S. sent seized Iranian weapons ammo to Ukraine. And the Pentagon announced Tuesday it has delivered thousands of small arms previously seized from a shipment intended for Yemen's Houthi rebels, along with over 500,000 rounds of ammunition. The U.S. believes the seized arms were supplied by Iran. In recent years, they have to untick in these illegal shipments from Tehran to the Houthis via regional waters. U.S. Central Command had said that the arms were delivered to Ukraine forces last week, coming amid reported severe ammo and weapons shortages along the front lines with Russia. The U.S. government transferred over 5,000 AK-47s, machine guns, sniper rifles, PG-7s, and over 500,000 rounds of 7.62 ammunition to the Ukrainian armed forces on Thursday. These weapons will help Ukraine defend against Russia's invasion and are enough material to equip a brigade, the statement touted further. CENTCOM described that it was the result of several ship seizures running between May 2021 and February 2023 from stateless vessels. The Pentagon says Iran's elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was ultimately behind the shipment. Iran's support for the armed groups threatens international and regional security. Our forces, diplomatic personnel, and citizens in the region, as well as those of our partners. We will continue to do whatever we can to shed light on and stop Iran's destabilizing activities. So further evidence that, of course, things are not going in the right direction. They are pissed that their own weapons are now being sent. Russia's pissed that their allies' weapons are now being sent to their enemies. And then the FAA is investigating the Boeing whistleblowers' claims about the 787 Dreamliner. If you missed all of the stories from that prior, there was a gentleman who had a former testimony, I guess it was a formal deposition that they put together against Boeing, stating that they were not doing their job properly and they had safety concerns. That gentleman mysteriously ended up not around permanently. And of course, that gentleman ended up not around permanently right at the wrong time, like right before he was going to testify to his deposition. So a lot of people think that that's extremely shady. Within weeks, they lost their CEO. They lost their, like 3 people underneath their CEO. The Federal Aviation Administration is investigating Boeing engineers' allegations that assembly defects in the company's 787 Dreamliner raised safety concerns. Sam Semafor, a quality engineer at Boeing, said he observed shortcuts taken by Boeing during the assembly of the plane, resulting in drilling debris left in interfaces and deformation of composite material. He also claims to have observed issues with the 7-7 assembly process, according to the letter sent by Semafor's lawyers in the FAA in January. The New York Times first reported on the alleged problems with the aircraft. In Semafor's letter to the FAA, his attorney, Deborah Katz, said he was responsible for monitoring aircraft production at Boeing, as well as investigating defects and their root causes. So this same gentleman is the one who basically he was qualified to say that there was a lot of problems, and he said that they were all dismissed and ignored. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to. I wonder if he's made any comment about saying that he is not in a mindset to take himself out or anything like that. Given the state of the other whistleblower, I wonder if if that's crossed his mind, or if he's nervous or worried about what fate may have fell the whistleblower before him.
Yeah, well, I bet. Also, do you think that's a message to future whistleblowers? If anybody else wants to come out, I bet.
Yeah, I mean this is 2 in a row, though. So that's the question. Will we see 3 or 4, or did obviously the first guy didn't stop this guy, so we'll see what happens. But this is not looking good at all for Boeing.
No, it is not. And then AI-operated fighter jet will fly Air Force Secretary in a test of military's future drone warplanes. They actually say that the Air Force is going to be betting a large part of its future air warfare on a fleet of more than 1,000 autonomously operated drones. And later this spring, its top civilian leader plans to climb into an artificial intelligence-operated warplanes and let it take him airborne. No thanks. Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall told senators on Tuesday at a hearing in the service's 2025 budget that he will enter the cockpit of one of the F-16s that the service has converted for drone flight to see for himself how the AI-controlled plane performs in the air. There will be a pilot with me who will just be watching, as I will be, as the autonomous technology works. Kendall told the Senate Appropriations Committee defense panel members, hopefully neither he or I will need it to fly the airplane. So he's going to trust his life, but apparently, of course, there's going to be a way that they can step in and take control. It's kind of like autopilot, only it will be taking off and landing all autonomously. This has actually been available for quite a few years. In fact, we covered a few years ago, before I had Dex with me, I covered this really brute machine that it was plugged into the pilot seat, and it had these weird little arms, and it could actually push all of the buttons. And that was kind of the brute way. Now, if they build it into the planes, they can actually have not only it fly itself, but it can run multiple weapons systems. So if you think about the old like World War II planes that had gunner positions, it could have multiple onboard cameras, multiple onboard radars. It could be an attack platform. I can't imagine what they are actually creating right now as far as giant planes, sort of like a Hercules or something like that, or like a straight up gunship. And they could add 20 more planes or 20 more weapons on there. And if they're now going to start adding lasers, all of this could be autonomous. You could send in an autonomous, not even a drone, more of a gunship in there and do all sorts of damage and never risk a single human life. So it's kind of weird in that show, the 3-Body Problem. If you've seen that yet, he asked the main commander, and he goes, hey, he goes, hey, what do you think of this ship here? And the guy goes, well, it can hold 7,000 gallons of gas. It can do this. It can do that. It has 18 onboard weapons, blah, blah. He goes, I don't want the pamphlet. I want what you really think about it. And after he shows his badge and goes, you know who I am? He's like, I'm not going to talk to a stranger about what I think. And after he sees he's like the CIA leader, he goes, well, personally, he goes, it takes too much gas. It's not fair for a smaller fight. It's not good for this fight. And he goes, instead, if I had this billions of dollars, I would put it into, I think it was literally 1,000 autonomous drones. So it's something that has been reflected in the opinion for a long time, and it is the future. Everybody knows it. In fact, over a big carrier, you would be more beneficial to have something like 1,000 drones instead. They're going to be way more useful and incredibly, incredibly dangerous. So our war, I've been saying this for 10 years, is going to be drone versus drone, robot versus robot. Dex, go ahead.
Well, and this isn't even that new of technology, because at the end, we have talked about this before, but F-22s can fly by themselves. F-22s can actually take over from a fighter pilot and fly a dogfight and win a dogfight better than a human pilot. They've had that for a long time. They actually upgraded the software in the F-35 from the F-22 so that it can do it too. So what they're saying here is putting it in an F-16. So I guess that's sort of taking this greater technology and taking it down a level to a more common plane. That probably is the interesting challenge. But like, folks, don't kid yourself. Our military has had autonomous flying planes for quite some time. I think part of this is maybe getting the public used to the idea that we may actually be having, fighter planes in the air with no humans in them. We got used to the idea of the drones and the Reapers and that. And, first they were reconnaissance, and then they started actually carrying some munitions with them. And now we got to get the public used to, hey, don't worry about all these planes flying up in the sky. We don't have to have pilots in them anymore. But they've been able to do it for a while. And I think obviously today's technology, they can do so much more than what the technology they built the F-22 on. But the F-22 is a phenomenal plane. And like I said, it can take over from the pilot. Pilot passes out in a heavy G. It'll take over and finish the dogfight and win and fly it better than the pilot.
And we covered that like 6 months ago, that they did simulations, and they did like one of the first cyber dogfights, or the drone dogfights, and didn't they say that the autonomous thing could outfly the regular pilot or something? I mean, it makes sense. Eventually, they will be able to.
It's been that way since the F-22 was released.
Yeah,
I mean, and I know that because I know people that worked on the project in Marietta from Lockheed. So, it's not classified information. That's just normal public information.
Well, in Top Gun, in the new one, they talk, in that movie, they talk about how they say, hey, you're one of the last aces. That was based in reality. Think about the maneuvers that an F-22 that's autonomous can do compared to a human. There is no risk. They can go Mach 10 and not worry about the thing burning up. Other than the cost of the plane, which I'm sure they don't want to do something too stupid. But when it comes down to a mission failing, or if it's a take yourself out kind of mission, it would no longer be that. They could send an autonomous F-22 to do the job. If it's in a dogfight, it could do a flip that there's a 60% chance that the plane might, go down in flames, and it can do it, and they can do it with no thought other than the money that they'll lose. And we'd pretty much all know that they don't really care about money too much, especially in war. They'll just print another $1 billion and make another one. Rashid JT Patton, thank you. Wide Awake and Angry. J Pass, nice to see you. And thank you, Queen Peachy Keen D. What is happening? Billy is in the house. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. Billy the Kid Norwood, Team Alaska. Gary Hunt, all sounds good on paper, LOL. Yeah, well, we'll see when it actually happens. Yeah, but go back to what China said about their radar and the stuff that they have. The radar that they state could basically make our carriers into nothing. make our carriers completely useless. They say that with 7 low Earth atmosphere satellites, they could essentially make all of our carriers obsolete. They wouldn't be able to defend themselves. They wouldn't be able to attack. And they said 28 or 32 or something like that. It was under 32 satellites. They said they could do it to the whole world. We don't know if they're telling the truth, but that's pretty scary considering our carriers are what sets us apart over every other country. We have 11 carriers where the closest is China at, what was it? They're on 3. They're making their 4th. And they don't even have pilots for the 3rd, to the point where we also covered they're actually trying to steal pilots, local pilots from the United States. They're also trying to take retired U.S. Navy and Air Force pilots and give them absorbent amounts of money so they will fly on their new carriers. When we covered that, we said, hey, why are they doing this? Are they getting prepped for a war right now? It seems like that's the pattern that keeps popping up. The Major, what is going on? Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Katori, Queen Peachy Keen D. Thank you, John Titor II. Y2K no more. Wow, Y2K was stupid in the beginning. Scrappy Dabby Doo, Letitia Stoll, Bobby Sue. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see here. And Mystery School. Nice to see you. And then everybody over on D Live. Thank you, Irish Rebel. Thank you, Big Fish. Thank you, Kimbria. Thank you, Kiki Gray. And thank you, everyone who made it to tonight's show. Top supporter tonight, thank you, Sweatinum Ministries. I appreciate your support. Domenico Lavara, thank you for the super sticker. And thank you for everybody that made it to not only this show, but our other show. If you would like to watch our Marfoogle news short, make sure to go and click here. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Dex. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
It's now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.